Humanity's advancement can be easily milestoned by fascinating and innovative inventions. The inspiring creations are the reason we have a decently advanced civilization today. But sometimes humans do stretch our imagination too far, to the bizarre and disturbing dimensions that have resulted in some eerie outcomes. Welcome to Nutty History. Today we're looking back at some of the creepiest examples of technologies that were invented in history. My gosh, you are radiating! The year was 1933, and the popular beauty magazine of its time, The Hairdresser and Beauty Trade, introduced to their British readers a new revolutionary French product line that, in their words, was going to change the cosmetics game forever. Thoradia. The magazine claimed that it would not only tone up and strengthen the tissues of your skin, but would automatically remove fat and wrinkles. Now, if you're wondering why this miraculous cosmetic product line can't be found on the shelves in supermarkets today, the reason for that is the same reason that made this product line unique. It's a magical secret ingredient. It was radium. Well, radium bromide to be precise, but that doesn't alter radium's radiation property that took the life of the scientist who discovered it. Marie Sklodowska-Curie died of radiation poisoning in 1934. Yet 27 years later, Thoradia cosmetics were all the rage when it hit the shelves in Western Europe. In fact, radiation was the fad not only in beauty, but also, ironically, in health, with O-radium hat pads being sold as a source of beneficent rays for hairs, supplying radiation directly to their consumers' brains. Also, why keep radiation only for external use, when the spa towns of Bath and Buxton were offering glasses of radiant water in their pump rooms as beverages? In fact, you could also buy sparklet spa radium bulbs at any chemist to turn your tap water into carbonated radioactive water. Spa radium bulbs were tap extensions that would add radiation flavor to the water. Who doesn't love radiation flavor? Thoradia's extensive range of products included soap, toothpaste, day and night creams, lipstick in 12 colors, and other cosmetics, skin tonics, and beauty milks. Their advertising was focused on the luminous properties of their products in the dark. It was the perfect futuristic fad for the wealthy during the age of promising science. Incongruously, these products were also advertised as cures for a variety of diseases, ailments, and health issues. Funny enough, the people who were putting radium in these products were believers of an antiquity-age medical theory called hormesis, a phenomenon in which a harmful substance gives stimulating and beneficial effects to living organisms when the quantity of the harmful substance is small. Now, it took them time to learn that what may be true for one toxic substance may not be necessarily true for the others. Let the Meowsic play. Athanasius Kircher was inarguably one of the best-known Jesuit scholars of the 17th century, but he also was the weirdo who came up with the idea of a cat piano. Fortunately for cats, no such instrument was ever constructed. Still, Kircher described it as an instrument made with an arrangement of cats whose natural voices were at different pitches and arranged them in cages side by side so that when a key on the piano was pressed, a mechanism drove a sharp spike in the appropriate cat's tail. Ouch! Kircher, that is straight-up animal abuse. What makes it even creepier is that Kircher envisioned this instrument in the hopes of raising the spirits of an Italian prince burdened by the cares of his position. According to Kircher, the result of the player would produce a melody of meows that became more vigorous as the cats became more desperate. Well, I don't know if such an instrument would have worked, but it seems like Kircher most likely didn't like cats at all. When medicine was entertainment. Consider you are in the 17th century in Leiden in the Netherlands and have got tickets for a special show tonight. All you have been told is that the show will be nothing like you've ever seen before. You grab a date and arrive at a small private theater. The auditorium, well, it's shaped like a cone with accommodations for about 200 people to sit and observe. Huge lamps focus on the performance stage, and behind them you notice space for a small orchestra in the dark. But what intrigues you most is the furniture in the middle of the stage, an operation cot surrounded by skeletons of dead animals and birds. Before you could realize what you were here to enjoy, you would smell the aroma of perfume in the air to hide the stench of a corpse that is brought onto the stage and placed on the cot, followed by a surgeon arriving fully prepped in their gear, and he begins explaining. At first, You may feel sorry for your date, as you may have dragged them to a medical lecture, but then the surgeon picks up the scalpel and opens up the belly of the cadaver to show the insides and starts operating on them. The shock of that sight would not even be over, and you would realize you are here to see them perform a whole surgery. The surgeon would commentate as they would go on with their precise work. Most of the time, these shows were about performing a public autopsy, but often there were live patients too. Ooh. These live patients would be given a dose of Auntie or whiskey. Anatomical theaters such as Archiginesio in Bologna, Italy, Waag in Amsterdam, Netherlands, and Sala Heimbernat in Barcelona, Spain, are beautifully designed buildings with large windows for natural light that saw years of macabre displayed during the 17th and 18th centuries of medicine, veiled as entertainment. These were the years when mercury and arsenopyrite were used as drugs, and amputations were performed in the most contrasting fashion to what can be described as clinical. Leeches were still considered a healthy procedure, and red-hot pans were applied to the body for blistering in hopes of extracting the toxins out of the body. All of this was on display in the anatomical theaters. Most of the audience to these shows were peers from the field of medicine and nobles and elites who needed a thrill in their lives to take the boredom away. Often, they would also sponsor the doctors who would come up with revolutionary techniques to advance the study of medicine and use the anatomical theaters to present their ideas in practice. Would you go to one of these theaters? Let us know in the comments. The Real Westworld. The concept of the hit show Westworld, a theme park made of autonomous robots living like real people in a fantasy version of the Wild West, appears futuristic. It's yet another science fiction tale of caution about how violent delights have violent endings regarding conscient artificial intelligence. But the story of a grand show created with artificial automatons is actually thousands of years old. Somewhere between the 1st and 3rd century CE, most probably around 60 AD, lived a Greek mathematician and engineer named Heron in the Roman-occupied Egyptian city of Alexandria. Arguably worthy of the title Father of Physics, Heron's surviving writings have made many historians question why his work didn't cause the Industrial Revolution nearly 16 or 1700 years earlier. The man had theorized designs for steam-powered devices, a fire engine, a coin-operated holy water dispenser, an automated door, and a primitive but programmable automation to perform and entertain people. A mobile mini-theater, Heron's ambitious vision was a cart with rope wrapped around 2 independent axles and a falling weight to provide power. Heron could vary how the rope was wound around the axle using pegs projecting from the axle that allowed the robot performers to change direction and move along a pre-programmed course. Using this technology, Heron created a variety of small shows, but he mostly focused his stories around macabre topics and depicted tales of horror and tragedy with epic scenes of death and characters like gnarly monsters and ghouls, death hounds, banshees, fey creatures, and witches. This primitive mechanism was very similar to a modern binary computer. Old-fashioned punch cards in the first half of the 20th century operated on exactly the same principle. Using this system, Heron's writing suggested that he was able to create a self-directed play of automatons of almost 10 minutes in length. His shows were enigmatic for his audience, who had never, ever seen things like this before. Most plays back then were pretend and left a lot to the audience's imagination. But Heron paved the way for special effects and allowed the audience to experience magic, fear, amazement, and the thrill of something supernatural for perhaps the first time. Heron also invented perhaps the first systematic money-making device for the church, a vending machine. Worshippers would drop a coin through a designated slot that was connected to a tray attached to a lever. The weight of the coin would open a valve that allowed the blessed holy water to flow out so worshippers could sprinkle themselves. Eventually, the coin slid off the tray, and with the aid of a counterweight, the lever snapped back into place, ready for the next worshipper seeking divine favor. The Choo Choo Club. By the 19th century, most of the quacky sort of medicines were beginning to phase out of use, and doctors began to prescribe substances that we now can recognize as medicine, apart from, of course, mercury, arsenopyrite, leeches, and powdered Egyptian mummies. Around this time, physicians like John Snow and Dr. Ignaz Semmelweis also found a correlation between well-being and hygiene. By the time the 20th century arrived, medical science had advanced enough to keep people healthy on a regular basis despite dabbling into radiation. The anatomical theaters were also losing their charm by now, and there was a void for a new fad. Enter stage, the wellness culture. Wellness culture has been around us longer than we would like to admit. Today we have fitness influencers on Instagram who use Photoshop and filters to falsely advertise their affiliated products. In the 90s and 2000s, we had telemarketing companies selling abominations like the Shake Weight. In the 80s, Jane Fonda made neon leotards fashionable and defined a whole decade. The point is, fitness gurus have existed for a long time, and it all probably started with Horace Fletcher. This dude had a name good enough to be a professor at Hogwarts and was also perhaps the first diet faddist who made chewing food longer a trend. At its core, his philosophy sounded a lot like what we now call intuitive eating. Similar to the tales of wisdom from the Middle East, he advocated eating only when you are hungry, eating what you crave but in moderation, and stopping as soon as you are satisfied. But he also then went on and created Fletcherism, a food fad that became known as the Choo Choo Club. He promoted a life hack that promoted a palatable idea to the masses that they should eat anything they wanted whenever they wanted. But by eating, what he really meant was that they should only chew whatever they want. This ideology got him the mocking name the Great Masticator. People were told that they should chew every morsel of what they ate as long as possible until the food was liquid and went down the throat easily. Whatever could not be turned down to a pulpy juice should be spat out. According to a researcher who tried this fad after Fletcher's death, confirmed that the crazy and disgusting practice did work for losing weight, but it wasn't healthy at all. He reported a loss of muscle mass and suffered heavily from sluggishness and brain fog. Obviously, fiber plays an important part in the human diet and cannot be turned into juice. But a follower of the Choo Choo Club could swallow a lot of ice cream by simply letting it melt in the mouth. No chewing required. You can imagine how healthy a gulp of a sugary lump of swallow than actual fiber like lettuce and cucumbers could be. Thanks for watching yet another Nutty History video. If you'd like to watch more videos about creepy things from history, tell us in the comments. Also, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and click that bell button to be notified about new videos.